About 3 years ago, I went to a self-help group for people with issues. I had just recently discovered I had issues, so I figured this would be a good time to go. And when I got there, it was about the size of this room. We sat in this really tiny circle, and it was all women. And we began to share our issues, our stories. The first woman starts, and she tells us about her eating disorder. The eating disorder that was so severe that she was on an IV for 2 weeks. That's an insanely long time to be on an IV. That's close to death, if we're being honest. And in that moment, I thought, how horrible that must be to be her, to have dealt with those issues. I couldn't relate to something like that, and I hoped that this would be the worst story. And then the second girl began, and she told us about her body dysmorphia and how that became so bad she couldn't even leave her house. It was a form of agoraphobia. How did she get to this meeting? Who dragged her here? Did she just come here herself? She just knew at that moment she needed the help. I admired these people, these women. They knew they needed help. And as all these women are beginning to share, I realized rather quickly I am not going to fit in. Because you see, I definitely had issues. If we're being honest, I still have them. They're right there. But my issues, well, they were a little different. My issues stem from the fact that I was in a 3-year-long manipulative and toxic relationship. It never got physical, so I couldn't justify calling it abuse. So I didn't. And when it got to my turn to tell my story, they asked me, "What is your issue?" And so I told them. I told them how he called me names, like stupid and fat and ugly, worthless, garbage, you name it. He called me that. I told them the story of the time I was at a restaurant where we were just sitting. And a waiter came by to take our order, and as quickly as he left, he gave me a look that I'm not going to bother to recreate. And he slammed his hand on the table, and he said, "You embarrass me. You're stupid. What's wrong with you? You don't deserve me taking you home. You don't deserve to get into my car." Spoiler alert, he did not take me home that day. He left me at the restaurant. He left me there. Like I was garbage. I was worthless. He took my phone, my wallet, and my keys. I was nothing. At that moment, I felt unloved and stupid. And when I told my story to these women, they looked at me with that same look, surprisingly, and they asked, "Why aren't you getting upset?" Because what they wanted was tears of rage and screaming and crying, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't muster it. And they told me I was insensitive and that I was a mockery of people with real issues. I was off-brand. I didn't fit. You know, an off-brand. It's generic. It's basic. It's not real product. Doesn't mean much. The name brands, the people with issues like anorexia or people with depression, they're all valid. But they are more important than my issues. And at the end of it all, they politely asked me to leave. They asked me to leave the meeting of support group. They just asked me to leave. I felt humiliated. And as I got up to leave, I made eye contact with the first girl, the one I told you about, the one with anorexia. And she didn't even look at me like I was worthless, like I was garbage again. And I wondered, why? What is wrong with me? Why don't I fit? What did I do to deserve this? And it took me a really long time to realize it was never about me. It was more about them. And eventually, I had to forgive myself. I had to forgive myself for the pain I went through from individuals who were also in pain themselves. From my ex-boyfriend, who was horrible to me, to those women in that meeting. And it's not all bad, because I'm here in front of you all, even with my microphone messing up. I'm here. I'm kind of good. Thank you. I'm here in front of you, in front of my amazing friends and my amazing classmates and this panel of judges, and in front of my fiance, who I am currently engaged to. There he is. I'm blessed and happy. And it's not like my issues aren't there, because they are. You know, I'll hear a slam at the door, and I'm back in that sphere, in that moment. They're not gone, but they are less. And if you can take anything from what I've told you tonight, I would just say, don't brand yourself. If anything, go off-brand. Thank you so much, everyone.